Okay, I'm visiting with Jose Rodriguez, a candidate for State Senate in District 29. Tell us about the event this evening.
Well, this was a very gratifying event for me because the turnout was tremendous and we had a good range of people here with an education background. This was a community forum on education. We wanted to touch on some of the critical issues that we face in education in the state of Texas today, and particularly here in El Paso. Issues involving standards, accountability, school equity, and other issues like for the disabilities community that were raised, as well as, you know, the importance of parents and getting parenting classes. So there was a whole range of issues that we talked about that, in my view, were a good introduction to what the state of Texas faces in education. So I wanted to use this as a means of getting input from the El Paso citizens on these issues involving education, so that if I get elected in November, I am prepared to represent the views of my community. And I also wanted to launch this in order to have an ongoing dialogue with this group of people and others down the line that might be interested, even after the election. If I were to get elected and I'm the state senator, I want to be able to have regularly scheduled quarterly, bi-monthly meetings on education to stay in touch with what the community is feeling and what should be done in the Texas legislature.
So is education a priority for your campaign?
It's the top priority of my campaign.
And why is that the top priority?
Because without education, I don't think El Paso can reach the maximum potential that we keep talking about. I mean, if you don't have an educated workforce, a workforce that is trained with skilled jobs, then how are we going to be able to handle the high-tech jobs that we dream about coming out of Fort Bliss? How are we going to be able to handle the research and development that we talk about in our healthcare industry? How are we going to be able to have the workforce for developing our alternative energy industry, manufacturing in solar panels or wind turbines and so forth? You got to have an educated workforce, and without that, then we just aren't able to compete. We aren't able to get anywhere. Not just El Paso, but the whole state and the rest of the country.
What have you taken from today's forum?
What I've taken is that there's a lot of strong views that people have, some that seem to be divergent views, for example, on testing, on the tax test. And as I said in my closing remarks, we didn't even get beyond the tax test as a measurement of student success. There's a bunch of other measures that I think we need to talk about besides the results in a test. You know, how well the student does on the average throughout the year, how they do on their school projects, how much involvement is there from the parents, whether those kids in fact are prepared to go to college or not, whether they pass the test or not. I mean, there's all kinds of other measurements that it seems to me you have to take into account. So that's why I say I thought that was a good start on the discussion about testing, standardized tests. And so what I came away from is we need to do more of this. I think there's a hunger in the community to discuss these issues. And as somebody said, the principal from Austin High School, we have to reach some kind of consensus on what position we're going to take as a community when we go to Austin as a delegation to advocate for some of these reforms in education.
So your opponent will probably say that the main priority in the state of Texas right now is the economy. How do you square that with what your priority is? Well,
you know what? I differ with him on that. Yeah, we're in the middle of a recession, and we have to address that. It's being addressed, I think, by the Obama administration. These things take time. I think it's something he was saddled with, and he's doing the best he can. In the state of Texas, you'll hear Governor Perry boast about how we're not affected, we got jobs, we got industry coming in, and so forth. If that's the case, then what are we doing to prepare the workforce, which our state demographer, Steve Murdoch, keeps telling the legislature they have to do something about? What are we doing to graduate more of our kids along the border, the future labor force of this country and Texas, to be college prepared, to be job skills development prepared, and make Texas the competitor that it wants to be in the global economy? I mean, we can't you can't separate education. Education is the key to a better economy, to growing our tax base, better health care, people who can afford to buy insurance.
Okay, so at this point, have you identified any particular pieces of legislation that you would introduce if you were elected senator relating to education to alleviate some of the problems that were identified here
Well,
tonight?
there are several bills that were introduced in the last session. Bills dealing with, for example, we're talking about testing. Bills that would address testing standards and other measurements, such as what I was talking about. That it's not just a test that we should rely on to reward a teacher with a salary increase or a bonus for an administrator. Why don't you look at other criteria besides the results of a standardized test? How the student has done throughout the school year. You know, the kinds of things I was talking about. That bill did not go anywhere. I mean, so there's legislation like that that I support and that I would be very interested in continuing to promote in this next session of the legislature.
Final question. You had mentioned that there were going to be other forums of this type. What are those forums
Well,
like?
we have 3 other forums scheduled before the summer's over and before the campaign gets into high gear, electoral-wise, you know, with rallies and so forth in September. The next one is in 2 weeks, and it's a healthcare forum. The issues I see there are that we've got Obamacare, Obama reforms coming down, but the state of Texas, the leadership like the governor, is balking at implementing some of those provisions in the healthcare bill. I think we need to address that and other issues that we have. I don't think we still have all the children that should be covered under the CHIP program and all the money that should be invested in the CHIP program, for example. 2 weeks after that, we'll have a forum on the environment and deal with issues that impact El Paso. And I want to there bring the discussion to binational approaches to environmental concerns that we have. And then finally, at the end of August, we will have a forum on jobs and economic development. We're not ignoring the issue of economic development. It's important. But for me, education is the theme that is weaved through all of these issues.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.